And good evening and welcome to another special edition of Tiger Talk featuring Mizzou softball here from Bud's Classic Barbecue in downtown Columbia. I'm Brad Tronago. Glad you could join us here at Bud's. We're also on the Mizzou softball Facebook page, the Mizzou Athletics Facebook page, and the YouTube channel for Mizzou Athletics. So a lot of places to catch the show. If you've missed part of it live, you can catch the replays on Facebook and YouTube. We're also going to put those on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast feed where you can listen anytime. We're going to hear from Coach Larissa Anderson momentarily, and a couple of her star infielders will be with us as well a little bit later on, Jenna Laird and Maddie Gallagher. Pretty darn good week for your Tigers, who are ranked number 9 in the country now in one of the national polls. Sitting at 33-11 on the year, 7-8 in the SEC. Picked up a win at Drake, 6-3 on Wednesday, and then over the weekend, the first series victory against Florida in a decade. Dubs on Friday, 6-3, and Saturday, 5-2. Up next for the Tigers, another home date against SIU Edwardsville on Wednesday at 5, and then a big series against another team in the top 10 in the RPI, Georgia in Athens, coming up on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So with that, we say hello now to Coach Larissa Anderson, and like we were mentioning just off air a moment ago, a pretty fun week for your team.
It absolutely was. I mean, all the way around, for us to be able to go up to Des Moines, Iowa, and for our Iowa kids, and we have an Iowan on our coaching staff to be able to play in front of their home crowd. That was really special, and then obviously with the series win against Florida, really topped it off.
We'll go into a lot of stats behind this successful week coming up. I wanted to start, though, with this number, 9,565. That is the Friday through Sunday attendance at Mizzou Softball Stadium. That is the largest weekend crowd in the history of Mizzou softball. So congratulations, I guess, to everybody here at Bud's and everyone out there who was able to check out some of the action over the weekend. That many people in the crowd, Coach, what kind of impact do you think that made in terms of the games?
I think it had a huge impact. I mean, Florida has freshman pitching. I think it was the first time that they've been in an environment that was that intimidating. It was extremely loud. There was a lot of energy. It was exciting. And I think it just has such an impact on the game. I mean, when you hear the MIZ chant, and I can tell you that Marissa McCann, and I know we're going to get into it a little bit, but when Marissa McCann closed out game 1 on Friday, and she got 2 outs, and then all of a sudden it was standing room only. Everybody got to their feet and started to applaud as she had 2 outs. She came up to me Saturday morning. She said that is the best softball experience she's ever had in her entire life. But you can just feel the energy and how everyone is just willing you to get every single pitch.
So, again, the weekend attendance record for the program, also the single game attendance record was set during Saturday's win with 3,607 just for that game alone. So Florida came into the weekend, and they still, even after the weekend, they lead the SEC in almost every major offensive category. They're putting up terrific numbers offensively this season. They averaged less than 3 runs per game in this series. So how are you guys able to make that happen and limit a very talented Gator offense?
I think, one, it's having a real good game plan and understanding where their hitter strengths are, how we're going to attack them, and then the pitching staff and along with Julia Crenshaw behind the plate, executing that game plan. And it really comes down to hitting the location, keeping them off balance, not living on one side of the plate. And I wouldn't be able to call the game that I do if I wasn't getting feedback from Crenshaw. Every single pitch, she's communicating to me on where it was in the location, what that pitch looked like, are the batters making any adjustment in the batter's box. So it really takes all 3 of us to be able to do what we do.
I was at the game on Friday, and it was, a really fun game. Florida jumped out early. Your team was able to chip away, and then Florida nudged back in front before you guys ultimately had that big rally late that we'll get into in a bit. But I remember after, I think, 4+ innings, and I looked over at the scoreboard, and I'm like, we don't have a hit yet, and it's 3-2. But how was your offense, despite not getting a ton of hits on Friday or Sunday, how was your offense able to still manufacture runs and find a way to scratch out some wins?
So you know what, Brad? No one cares how you get on base, just that you get on base. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a walk, a hit by pitch, a base hit, an error, it doesn't matter. Like, you're on base. And we took advantage of a lot of opportunities. Like, we had a lot of walks. We had a lot of hit by pitches in that situation. We scored our first 2 with a walk and a hit by pitch with bases loaded. So just putting the pressure on them and being able to have quality at bats, pass the bat to the next person, and give what the game gives you. And if the game is telling you to take a pitch and draw that walk or get hit with one, then that's what they're willing to do.
I love the second inning had two hit by pitches, had a fielder's choice and a walk and a sacrifice fly to manufacture 2 runs. That's some old school like 1910s baseball or softball there, right?
But you know what? When you look at the R on the scoreboard, when it says runs, that's really the only thing that matters is how many runs you score. It doesn't matter how you get them.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this a little bit with your pitching staff. And again, considering the degree of difficulty going up against one of the nation's best offenses, overall, how do you feel like your pitchers performed through the weekend?
I thought they did a great job. Sierra Harrison did an unbelievable job on Saturday, and I got to give a lot of credit to Marissa McCann. I mean, for a freshman to throw in all 3 games, to make appearances in all 3, I think she tallied 24 complete innings that she threw and only gave up one hit and 1 walk. And I think that's extremely impressive for her to be able to do what she did.
So, again, Marissa McCann, a freshman, again, a great story if you're not familiar. She grew up in Columbia, spent a lot of her childhood in Columbia. Family moved to Arizona, wanted to come back, though, for college softball, and she has immediately become such a huge impact as part of this Mizzou pitching staff. And she's one of the best relievers in the SEC, regardless of age. Top 5 in terms of conference games in ERA and opponent's batting average. As you just mentioned, no runs allowed against that prolific Florida offense over the weekend. What is it about McCann that you think makes it to where she's built for this stage so early in her career?
It really starts with her composure. Like she has had great composure on the mound. She does not get rattled. She's very, very consistent with her effort and not getting caught up with the situation. She's only competing on that pitch. So it doesn't matter if it's the leadoff batter or bases are loaded. She's just focusing on the effort that she puts in. And what makes her really successful is that she spins the ball extremely well. So even if she does miss and the ball gets too much of the plate, it's spinning a lot, so it's really hard for hitters to be able to square it up. And then you add a real dynamic changeup on top of that, so it really keeps the batters off balance.
Another young lady who's performing well out of the bullpen is Taylor Pinnell. Saves aren't necessarily a prominent stat in softball necessarily, but still Pinnell gets another one on Saturday. She now leads the nation with 8 saves so far on the year. How has Pinnell embraced that role so effectively?
She loves the moment. Like she's like Wild Thing from Major League. Like she loves coming out of the bullpen. She loves the excitement. She just feeds off of that energy. She wants to finish the game, and she wants to put the team on her back, and we all completely trust and rely on her to be able to do it. And what makes her so effective is, she has a changeup she can throw in every single count. We can almost pitch backwards where we're starting everything with the changeup, and then she throws her curveball and she can cut it up. And, she's starting to throw mid-60s, which is a lot higher velocity than she even had last year. But the biggest thing is not everyone wants to be in that role. Savers and closers in the Major League make a lot of money for a reason because it's really, really hard to do. And she's just really embraced that opportunity in that role.
You mentioned sometimes being able to open an at-bat with a changeup, which you would think would be kind of counterintuitive because it's meant to be a change of pace. But I'm guessing since she's a reliever, the hitters are used to a certain speed, the majority of the pitches, and then when she comes in with that right away, I'm guessing that's a means to throw batters off balance a little bit.
And coming from the left side. So where she throws, and she's all the way over on the first base side of the pitcher's plate on the rubber, and so her release is really hard to pick up, especially from a left-handed hitter. So when it comes out of her hand, you can't really differentiate what that speed is, and then all of a sudden it's coming in at 48. And then she's going to throw a fastball or a curveball, and that's coming in at 64 to 66. Really big speed differential there.
When it comes to a pitcher deciding, or you deciding for a pitcher where it's best to stand on the rubber, what's that process like? Is it a lot of times have pitchers decided whenever they come to you that, hey, I'm more comfortable on this side? Or do you come to them and be like, hey, you could have a lot more success if you lined up over here instead of over here on the rubber?
It's really just me watching what is natural for their body. So when they arrive on campus at their first year, I'm just paying attention behind home plate. What does it look like coming out of their hand? Are we able to throw both sides of the plate? Because if a right-handed hitter is standing too much on the first base side, to throw inside, that's going to be a real different angle for them. So it's really trying to figure out what is the best tunnel, because the more pitches that come out of that same tunnel, the harder it is to be able to pick up different speeds and different movement.
This is a special edition of Tiger Talk with Mizzou softball head coach Larissa Anderson. Again, in a few minutes, we're going to hear from a couple of her standout infielders, Jenna Laird and Maddie Gallagher. I got to say, at least so far, Kaylee Langer might be my favorite player. And I say that just because it's the hit-by-pitch thing. I'm just amazed by that every game. So I'm at the game on Friday. I'm with my son, and Langer comes up to the plate for the first time. And I'm like, I'll tell you what, buddy, Langer, leads the SEC in hit-by-pitches. So just watch out for that. Boom! She gets lit up right away. Quote-unquote, drives in a run. So she does that in the second. The next half inning, she makes a really nice catch against the right field wall. She gets a more conventional RBI with a single in the sixth inning. I mean, she's your number 9 hitter typically, but she just seems to make a lot of different plays that impact winning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think offensively, her mentality is ideally what you want at a 9-hole. It's turn the lineup over. It's do whatever I need to do to get on base. And if it's getting hit, she doesn't care. It's the same thing. She's getting on base, so the top of our lineup has somebody on base. But she really understands her responsibility, and it takes a very selfless player to be able to do so in allowing maybe the count to go a little bit deeper to create a little bit more opportunity. As of this morning, Kaylee Langer, first in the SEC, fourth in the nation, with 16 times hit by pitches already this season. And her on-base percentage is nearly 500 because she's getting on base, whether it's HBPs or walks or conventional hits. So, again, having a really nice sophomore year. I did want to go back to the Drake game and not blow past that. Again, that was a 6-3 win on Wednesday on the road for the Tigers there. Stefania Abrascado makes the start at catcher for Julia Crenshaw. She delivers a homer, 3 hits, 3 RBI. That was, I believe, was that the first start for her at catcher? I believe it was, yeah.
Okay. Why did you decide to go with her in that spot at that time?
One, I felt like it needed the opportunity. I think it was really good for Crenshaw to have a rest. I mean, she's done the majority of the workload behind the plate, so she needed a little time. It also was giving another hitter in the lineup. I can put Abrascado behind home plate, which gave me another opportunity to put someone else in the DP position. So just continue to get people at bats because we're going to really rely on the depth of our lineup going forward.
Abrascado's birthday on Saturday, by the way, so happy birthday to her. Speaking of Crenshaw, Florida, among all those offensive stats where they're doing really well, they lead the SEC in steals by a mile. I don't believe they even attempted a steal.
They did not.
All weekend. Do you feel like Crenshaw being back there was a factor in that?
I definitely believe so. I mean, Crenshaw is very aggressive coming out from behind home plate. She's not afraid to pick off, and even her pickoff attempts might not be to try to get somebody out. It's just to keep them closer to the bag. So they're not getting that big lead, which completely shuts down the running game. And to have Florida, who has so many stolen bases, not even try to attempt one, just shows the respect that they have for Crenshaw back there.
Is that something that you're calling from the dugout, or is that more of a feel thing from her?
That's from her. I will call a pitch out with a pickoff if the second baseman's going to come in behind. That has to be called from the dugout because we're calling a pitch out, which is now a ball on the batter. So that does need to be called by me. But any reactionary play that she's snapping down to the first baseman's all her.
And we talked a little bit about this last week, but she was not a catcher coming up at all. She came to you as primarily a shortstop and then was converted to catcher almost by chance when you needed someone to help out in the bullpen catching. Is that another thing where she has gotten to where she has learned more about that aspect of the game kind of on the fly the last couple of years?
I would say last year her two biggest weaknesses in her game, she's always had a strong arm. She was a javelin thrower. I think she still has the state record for javelin in high school. So she's had an extremely strong arm. But in the catching position, it really doesn't matter how strong your arm is. It's how fast you can get rid of the ball. So it was working on some of the transfers and speeding up her footwork, and then also her blocking. When you're playing shortstop, you're not really dropping down to your knees and blocking a ball a lot. So those two parts of her game we really spent a lot of time with, and now she has all facets to be able to. She handles the pitchers extremely well. We're not afraid to throw bounce balls in, change-ups in the dirt because she blocks extremely well. And like we said, she shut down the running game.
Back to that Drake game, Alex Honnold, it was really a homecoming for her. She's from West Des Moines. She delivered 2 hits and an RBI in that game. How cool was that for her to have that opportunity to basically play a home game?
And that's something that we went in this season trying to get our seniors an opportunity to play in front of their home crowd, which is why we did the East Coast tour. So the 2 that we have coming up here later, we're able to play in front of their home crowd. And then same with Alex Honnold and Maya Dodge now on a part of our roster being from Iowa, and Molly Jacobson on our coaching staff. It's really important, and it also helps our recruiting base. Iowa does not play softball in the spring. They play high school softball in the summer. So a lot of those high school players are not playing competitive travel ball all summer long. So getting Mizzou to go up into Iowa to get some of those kids to watch us play is just going to recruit. It's going to open up a recruiting network.
Alex Honnold still leads the SEC in doubles. She's 5th in the nation in that department. She's also tied for 2nd in Mizzou history in single-season doubles. So another great year for the standout outfielder. I mentioned West Des Moines, and as we're recording this, the WNBA draft is actually happening, and Caitlin Clark is also from West Des Moines and about the same age. There's a little bit of an overlap where I guess they at least know each other, right?
I believe their families know each other. That's
okay.
As far as I've gotten into in terms of their relationship that they have.
Two pretty decent female athletes from West Des Moines, Iowa. Yeah, I would say so. Maya Dodge, speaking of Iowa connection, she was a transfer from up there. Maya Dodge homered on Saturday against Florida. Big transition from the Missouri Valley to the SEC. Do you feel like Dodge maybe starting to get the hang of it a little more?
She's starting to. She's having better approaches, and that's the big thing. And she's been asking a lot of questions after games on how I feel that her approach is, and is she making those adjustments. The more she sees this level pitching, the better she's going to be because she has all the tools. But again, like if you've never seen this type of movement, it's going to take a while for you to be able to catch up.
Maya Dodge also scored her 100th run of her career on Saturday, so congratulations to her for that. Can you put that accomplishment in context? Is it almost like I'm a basketball guy, of course, so I think about it from here, but is it like a 1,000-point scorer in basketball or something like that where you've got to be, sustained pretty darn good for a while to score 100 times?
I mean, I'm not a basketball girl, so I can't give you the analogy with that. I mean, but anytime you reach any of those milestones, it's impressive. 100 hits. 200 hits, 100 wins in pitching. I mean, 100 RBIs and 100 run scores. I mean, it's impressive to be able to do in your collegiate career, and for Maya to be able to do as early in her collegiate career.
And one of the other big accomplishments for her was that she got to hold the championship belt in the dugout, it looked like, after she hit the home run. So from what I understand, that's it's a mid-season acquisition for your program, that championship
belt. It is
belt.
new to our program. Abby Hay held it not too long ago and holding up that championship belt, and Maya, and hopefully we hold that belt a lot more often.
So it's every time somebody hits a home run, they get to hold the belt. Now, do they get, if you're the last one to hit a home run, do you get to hold it, like carry it over to the next game, like a pro wrestling championship belt, or how's that work?
It just comes out into our dugout every single game. It's in a spot, it's ready to go, and as soon as you hit the home run, someone's grabbing it. I don't know. You're going to have to ask them if it's always the same person that gets it, but when they get into the dugout and they celebrate after they walk their line, that's when they hand the belt to them.
Well, I was going to ask you about what that process is, because it hasn't been like a championship belt every year. I believe one year it was some sort of cowboy hat or something. And so is that a player-driven thing to decide what the home run celebration needs to be?
I'm coaching third. I have absolutely no idea where it came from, whose idea it was. Player-driven.
All right,
I just run with it.
Well, I mean,
yeah. I just want the home run, so
yeah.
I don't really care what they do after that.
Well, if you don't know the answer to that, Coach, maybe we'll just give you a break.
Yeah.
We'll bring on some people who might have a little more insight on that, and then we'll talk to you again in about 15 minutes.
I'll take notes.
That's Mizzou softball head coach Larissa Anderson. Again, she'll pop back on with us in a bit. We're going to say hello to a couple of her standout players here momentarily. We'll go ahead and have Jenna and Maddie make their way up to the stage here, and we'll hear from them in just a moment. And we will let you know right now that this special edition of Tiger Talk featuring Mizzou softball is brought to you by Shelter Insurance, ranked #1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power, 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield, we're your shelter. Also, Raceline Alternative Energy, working for a better future in rural Missouri. They are working to restore millions of acres of native prairie plants, which can be harvested to produce highly valuable clean energy called Prairie Power. Visit them online at racelinealternativeenergy.com. So we have a pretty good double play combo here for you coming up, and they're huddling up and talking strategy even as we speak. That's how focused they are on making sure to perform at their peak, whether it's on the field or during a Tiger Talk here. So let's go ahead and say hello to them now. We've got a senior shortstop from East Meadow, New York. Jenna Laird is going to be joining us for the next few minutes, and also a senior second baseman from Port Washington, New York, Maddie Gallagher. So we will catch up with them for the next few minutes here. Jenna, I guess we'll start with you. Can you give us some of the origin story on the championship belt, how you guys decided on that?
So honestly, I'm not very sure about that. Maddie might have more. I know it was definitely invented by J.C. Roberti, our manager. I think Abby Hay had something to do with that as well. But
yeah, so it actually came from our GA. She just decided to reach out to a company who was making these belts. She thought it was super cool, and then we have a little pun on it for Fortnite because we're all big Fortnite girls. So it says Victory Royale on the side of it that Abby Hay was in charge of. So that's where that came from. And then the championship bell is just something to wear just to acknowledge your accomplishment of the home run.
Gotcha. All
I
right.
think, didn't Abby spell it wrong also?
Abby did spell it wrong. So there is an error on the belt, but we try to look past that. And
E-belt.
yes. We pretend we know what it says.
Fair enough. So let's go back, all the way back to when you two were kids, because you guys are from the same neck of the woods, both from Long Island, New York, and you guys knew each other from how early, Jenna? How early did
9 years old.
9 years old. And were you guys on the same, like, travel team together?
Yep.
Yeah.
And were you guys even then, like, you guys were like a double play combo even at that point?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so from what I understand, Maddie, you guys developed some special, like, handshakes and stuff back then, and you have brought them back here at Mizzou?
Yeah, we have. We never forgot that handshake. So every time you see us out there in between innings, that's what we're doing. It's the same handshake from when we were 9 that we made. So that's pretty awesome.
It is. It's very awesome, and it's also a little bit adorable. I'm going to be honest with you. Who came up with the handshake? Was it you or was it Jenna?
It was a combo. We used
Yeah.
to fight about it when we were making it up, but it's been a combination of how we got there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenna, first impressions of Maddie Gallagher as a 9-year-old. What stood out to you about her when you
Oh
first
my
met? Do you
goodness.
know? I'm going back like more than 10 years here. But
Okay, so I'm going to talk about one thing right now. There's a
Please.
video somewhere out there on YouTube. It's
Oh,
somewhere
come
out there.
on.
And we're introducing ourselves, and Maddie actually sounds like a pipsqueak. Like, her voice is so high. But, I mean, back then I didn't know anything of it.
So-
but looking back at it now, it's crazy.
Jenna sounds like a pipsqueak too. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean, we
really
both
sure
do.
where we're going with
But
that.
she was more than me. She was definitely more than me. But, I mean, back then, first impressions, I was like, okay, this girl's going to be my best friend, honestly. And she was. She really
Yeah.
was.
it's, again, the adorableness. It's off the charts here. Maddie, same question for you. First impressions of Jenna.
Yeah, little stud. She had a pipsqueak voice too. It wasn't just me. We were both 9. But yeah, we both were just playing the middle forever. I was a little mad she had my number at first, but I got past that, and now we're best friends. We've been best friends since, so we're all good.
Did you guys ever play against each other, like in high school or anything along the way?
High school all the time,
Okay.
and they crushed me all the time.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
Jenna's over here nodding.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
oh
we
yeah,
did.
oh yeah, we played in high school.
It was not a game I would look forward to. To see her, yes, but everything else, no.
I think
was
she
good.
also liked to hit the ball straight to me every single time as well.
Yeah,
So I just
that's
kept getting her out. too.
pretty much how
She
it
was
worked.
getting you ready for the
Yeah.
next time you guys got together, so that you'd be prepared to handle hot shots to shortstop. I guess. Did you guys ever imagine that when you guys were playing basically in New York City, that you guys would end up together in a fairly small town in the middle of Missouri?
Not in Missouri. In college, yes, that was the initial dream when we were 9. We want to go to the same college, we want to live together, and we want to play up the middle together, which all 3 of those have been checked off the box now, so that's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and so it got that way initially, and it's been that way now for the last 2 years. But, initially when it came to your college choice, Jenna, we'll start with you. You were going to follow Coach Anderson to Hofstra, and then Coach Anderson gets the Mizzou job, and you decide, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot here at Mizzou. Was that weird for you? I'm guessing your initial thought was, I'm going to go to this school that's like a couple miles down the road from my house, and instead I'm going to move halfway across the country.
Yeah, I mean, that was the weirdest thing about it. I was always a homebody. Like, I was scared to sleep over Maddie's house when I was younger. Like, I would call my mom, and my mom's like, Jenna, I'm not coming to get you right now. But so knowing that I was going from like a mile to 1,000 miles was crazy, but I kind of just trusted the process, and I was like, it's going to be good for me. I know I'm going with someone I trust because I've built a relationship with Coach already, so I was trusting it.
What about for you, Maddie? Was it always just, get to the SEC and wherever I can compete at the highest level? Was that your initial college thought
Yeah,
process?
that was definitely the dream. I wanted to play in the SEC, highest level of softball that I could.
And so you start your first couple of years at South Carolina, and then you decide to transfer. What were you looking for once you decided that it was time to play somewhere else?
Yeah, just looking for a different environment. Like I said, I want to stay within the SEC. I built a relationship with Coach when I was 9 because she recruited me back at Hofstra. Always knew I would want to play for her. She was a great coach. But at that time, she was at Hofstra, so I was still looking to go achieve my dream in the SEC. So the moment I hit the portal, I kind of knew, hey, I always wanted to play for that coach, so maybe let me go and actually finish out where I belong.
You guys had the opportunity to basically go back home a couple weeks ago, played a few games on the East Coast in the New York area, including a game at Hofstra. And Jenna, we'll start with you. What was that experience like to be able to play basically in front of your hometown fans?
It was amazing. I mean, I still get the chills just looking back on it. It's just that was where I was going to play. I was committed to play on that field in front of my hometown, in front of all my family and friends. So, I mean, just being on that field was like, wow, this is where I could have been. This is where I was going to be. And now I still get to be here living out my dream thanks to Mizzou, thanks to Coach, thanks to everyone on the staff. And it really made my heart happy that week.
Same question for you, Maddie. The chance to play up in the Northeast. What was that like?
It was so special. I had so many family members that haven't gotten to see me play in college. So being able to go home, I was 20 minutes from where I grew up. So many family members, my high school team, high school coaches, just people who've impacted my life got to see me play. So it was just really special moment. And to be there with Jen and even Vanya, just having that moment back home was something awesome.
I want to circle back as we continue with shortstop Jenna Laird and second baseman Maddie Gallagher here on Tiger Talk. And Maddie, back to the transfer process for you. So you decide to come to Mizzou. When you got here, though, it was December of 2022, and the season started, 2 months, maybe even less than 2 months after that. How challenging was that for you to basically you come from that Columbia to this Columbia, and you got to be ready to go, in a matter of weeks?
Yeah, my first day on campus was first week of January, so we were playing 5 weeks later. It was a big adjustment, but I was excited for the challenge, for the change. It was just, I kind of got thrown into the ringer, just learning a new system, learning all my new teammates and even the staff. But it was just, I just wanted to have that new challenge and opportunity, so I just embraced every bit of it.
One thing that Coach Anderson was bragging on you specifically about last week is that you're not afraid to speak up. If something's not suiting and hitting a certain standard, you're not afraid to say something about that. But was that challenging for you, being, kind of the new kid who had just shown up last season, had just shown up a few weeks before?
Yeah, at first, for sure, because I had this different experience that these girls didn't have, for the good, for the better, for the worse, whatever it was. So just bringing in a new perspective to this program was definitely something I was ready to do, but just scared to do at first. But now, being here for a year and a half, I'm good to go.
Jenna, what's the vibe like on this team? I guess I don't know how to describe it any better. Is this relative to past teams that you've been on here at Mizzou? Is it a more business-like team? Is it a more relaxed type team? Where would you place it?
I didn't even know how to describe this team, but it is my favorite one that I've been on so far. I mean, we're all just crazy. You look at those two freshmen over there laughing right now. You wouldn't think they're freshmen. You would think they were seniors. We get along. Everyone on this team gets along so well. I mean, I'm very grateful to be a part of this team this year.
What game early on this season did you maybe could point to as oh yeah, I'm sure you thought in the preseason we're going to be pretty good, but then you started to see the results pretty early during the season too. Was there a specific game or a moment where you're like, oh yeah, we're legit this year?
I really think it started when our first tournament. I mean, we beat Clemson, and ever since then, I was like, we're going to be really good. Even if we didn't beat Clemson, I know we were still going to be really good, but there wasn't a certain point. I feel like going through the entire preseason from January when we were in Divine, I mean, everything was clicking for every single one of us, so I just felt I was very confident in everyone.
As a former South Carolina Gamecock, Maddie, did it feel a little extra good to take down Clemson, the old arch rival?
Absolutely. I never got the chance to beat them when I was back there, so that felt really good, and a top 5 win in the first weekend of the season was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Maddie, what makes Jenna Laird a good middle infielder?
A good middle infielder.
It's taking a long time.
I know.
She won a gold glove for crying out loud.
She is a gold glove, but I think her best attribute is how humble she is. I mean, she has so many awards since freshman year. She's just the most humble kid. She'll never stop working. She's been like that since she was 9, and I think that's the most impressive aspect.
Jenna, what makes Maddie a good middle infielder?
I mean, I think she's just overall a great player, not even just a middle infielder, everywhere. I think she works on her craft every single day. She'll go extra to make sure she's getting her backhands in. We all make jokes about it that she finally has a backhand this year, but she had it last year too. I mean, I think also we work very well together. We've worked well together since we were 9, so I feel like just knowing that I have her, we don't even have to talk, but we can read each other's minds. So it's pretty good.
We got the nice stuff out of the way. We'll get to some of the dirt coming up a little bit later on. But I wanted to get some of the nice stuff on the record in case their family's watching. Speaking of family, Jenna, you had a really special moment on Friday. That was Breast Cancer Awareness Night at Mizzou Softball Stadium. Your mom, Lisa, was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. She threw out the ceremonial first pitch to you before the game. What were your emotions during that?
I mean, that was made my heart very, very happy that day with everyone. We all had shirts in support of her. I mean, the whole entire stadium, you could see people around the entire stadium wearing her shirt. And that just, it made me very happy. I know it made her happy. And I think the best thing about that entire day was that my dad was freaking out that she wouldn't reach the plate when she threw the ball to me for the first pitch.
She was pretty close. I mean,
Yeah,
if you had
I mean-
a little more generous ump, she might have gotten a strike
Yeah.
on that. She could have been okay. She seems to have, I don't know how to describe this, she seems to have a little more woo to her personality than you. Do you take after your dad a little bit more?
I think I'm a perfect mix between the two of them, but I mean, everyone sees my dad at the games. He's always screaming at the umpires. I won't do that. I also won't yell like my mom. I mean, sometimes Maddie might see that side of me sometimes, but it's not completely out there yet.
So is she more of the dad side or the mom side? You've
She's
known her for a while.
definitely mixed, but the more you know her, you can see her mom's side come out
Very
a
good.
lot.
Maddie, you're on a 6-game hitting streak yourself. One of those hits came Saturday in the second inning against Florida. You single with Alex Honnold on base. Then you get caught in a rundown between first and second long enough to allow Honnold to score and you to make it to second. Was that the plan all along, to get stuck between the bases?
We work on that so often.
Okay.
Usually I am on the backside of it, so the runners are messing with me. So I decided I'm going to use my time to shine so I can mess with somebody else for once. So that was the plan.
Okay.
So I'm glad it worked.
Jenna, can you confirm that it's actually part of the plan to get stuck in a
Oh
rundown?
yeah, always is.
Okay.
Anytime we get stuck in a rundown, it was part of the plan.
Yeah, all of you. That's good. You got to have each other's backs, right? I should mention your parents, but your parents too. I mean, you guys they travel to like every game, right? From the Northeast. How cool is that to have that kind of support? Whenever they have to log quite a bit of miles. Maddie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I love playing in front of my family. Every time we play, I always make sure I know exactly where they are in the stands. But I think the really cool thing is if my family can't make it, then I have Jenna's family there. So it's like I have family regardless, which is really awesome.
You feel the same way, I'm guessing,
Yeah,
Jenna?
I really do. And one thing I always ask my dad is, where was all this money when I was back in high school and I was home? Because I don't know how he's spending all this money
He
to
was
come
saving
travel
up.
every single weekend.
He was saving up. He knew that he was going to have to
Yeah.
log a bunch of miles chasing you guys around, and hopefully a lot of games to chase you guys around still to come the next couple of months. Before we wrap up here, it's time for the main event. Jenna will let you return at the end because you've been here the longest. So, Maddie, you go first. Maddie Gallagher, tell us something about Jenna Laird that we don't already know.
It's not bad. There's no dirt here at the moment. But right now she's learning how to play the ukulele. So
I'm not that good, don't.
yeah, she's not that good. I do hear it a little often in my room. So I can attribute to she's not that good. But she's
Yes.
learning. She's practicing.
That's good. So where are you at in terms of your ukuleles? I mean, are you able to play any song we'd be familiar with?
I
or-
mean, there's a song in my book that I'm reading that I'm trying to figure out. I don't know what song it is though, but it just gives me some notes, and I'm trying to put it together. And it's not working the best right now. But
So you're not going to be ready to do like the national anthem on the
No,
ukulele
no,
by the end of this year. right?
definitely not.
We'll put a pin in that for like 2025
Yeah. Oh
or
yeah,
something.
I'll come back then.
Appreciate that. Jenna Laird, tell us something about Maddie Gallagher that we don't already know.
Again, no dirt. I mean, I'm sure we have so much dirt on each other, but we can't figure it out right now. But I think in not the near future, I'll give her 10 years, she will probably be living in Hawaii because she loves Hawaii so much. So that's where she'll be. If you can't find her, she's probably in Hawaii.
What is it about Hawaii that you like the most? I mean, obviously there's a lot of good stuff going on, but what do you like the most about it?
Yeah, I just love the beaches. I've grown up around water. Love the beaches. Rode down a volcano once when I was in Hawaii when I was 10. Would love to do that. Just the active lifestyle and the beach and the palm trees.
Would you say you rode down a volcano?
Yeah, on a bike.
Oh, a road.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking like I was confused. That was the
No,
wrong
yeah.
type of road.
We
sti-
biked down a volcano,
What
so
about-
that was pretty cool.
You surf at all or anything? Or?
I did surf, so I would if I was living there, I'd hope I'd be a pretty good surfer.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, before you head off to Hawaii, let's pick up a few more wins here with the Tigers, and looking forward to continued success for both of you this spring, okay?
Thank you.
Let's give it up for Maddie Gallagher and Jenna Laird. Thank you so much to both of them for joining us here on Tiger Talk. We will have Coach Anderson rejoin us for a few as we wrap up this edition of Tiger Talk, this special edition of Tiger Talk from Buzz Classic Barbecue, which is brought to you in part by Socket Fiber. Socket Fiber is now available, the fastest, most reliable internet combined with local service and simple billing. Contact Socket today for voice, data, and internet services for your home and business. 1-800-SOCKET3 or visit socket.net. Also, Sophia's and Addison's restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia, featuring over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers, and of course the famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's. Head coach Larissa Anderson is back with us now, and you got a pretty interesting double play combo there.
Aren't they great?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much fun to be around, and you can see why I wanted them out here at Mizzou for sure.
Well, and you've wanted to coach them since what they mentioned 9 years old, and that's about when the relationship started, right? So can you believe that they're almost done in terms of college?
I can't believe how it's just flown by, but Jenna has a great story that she remembers. Her oldest sister played college softball.
Yep.
And I was at one of her games, and here we see this little 9-year-old play with a wiffle ball behind the home run fence, and right away you could just tell that she was just a stud. So what do? I leave the game, and I go hang out with a 9-year-old playing wiffle ball in the outfield, because it's just one of those players that you just knew that someday she was going to be on the college field.
And Jenna Laird has started every game she's been here at Mizzou. She's top 5 all-time in Mizzou history in batting average, hits. She's top 10 in Mizzou history in steals and a few other categories. You know, you mentioned you recruited her to Hofstra, and it's one thing, and this is no disrespect to Hofstra, obviously, but it's one thing to be like, okay, I feel like you can contribute here, but now I'm going to an SEC school. And sometimes you see this with coaches where they'll recruit a kid for one school, but when they move up, they don't necessarily keep the same recruits. What was it about Jenna Laird where you were like, oh, she can play at any level?
Well, one, it was the players that we were recruiting at Hofstra. They were Power 5 players. They were able to play at the Power 5 level. We were like the Power 5 school of the Northeast when you were looking at it, and we were the dream school for everyone in the Northeast to go to, and we were playing a top 25 schedule. So knowing that a lot of those players in the program could play at the next level was really first. Jenna was one of the first ones that I would definitely take over, and you can add Kim Wirt into that category as well. That 2 players that I knew that could make an impact at the SEC. So when the time allowed me, according to the NCAA rules, on that September 1st, it was immediately okay. Are you following, or we're going to go to Columbia?
Very cool. You said last week that your only regret with Maddie Gallagher is you only got to coach her 2 years in college. Can you go over again what was it that made you say that about her?
I mean, I wanted her at Hofstra, and she came in for visits and met with her, and she was completely honest from the very beginning that she wanted to play at the Power 5 level and she wanted to be in the SEC, which I completely respect. And then when she went into the portal, when we spoke on the phone, I was like, okay, are you ready? It's time. And, I mean, she's just done such a tremendous job in such a short period of time, in a year and a half. And I do regret that I wish I could have coached her for 4 years, but I think she's made the absolute most of her opportunity that she's had in such a short period of time.
You want to make the campaign pitch to try and get her a Gold Glove at second base?
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm working on it. Keep up the work.
It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Laird's already got one, and Cassidy Shomo got one recently, so it'd be nice to rack up another one of those in black and gold. Maddie getting caught in a rundown that ultimately scored a run and led to no one getting out on Saturday. Was that actually part of the plan, or were they just trying to cover each other's butts?
I mean, I'm glad they're covering each other's butts. That's what they should be doing. But when we do inter-squad stuff all the time, it's always look to take the extra base. Make the opposing team play to our speed. Make them feel uncomfortable. And that's exactly what they did. Maddie's aggressive around first base, and now all of a sudden they're caught up in a first or third situation, and Honnold being able to read as soon as that throw went to the first baseman, and a left-handed first baseman who has to jump turn to throw home, it was perfect timing of her to be able to read that.
Couldn't have worked out any better. That was one of Mizzou's wins against Florida over the weekend. I wanted to get your thoughts, too. I mean, you're a New York State native as well, just like Jenna and Maddie Gallagher and Stefania Abriscato too. But the opportunity to make that East Coast trip up to your old stomping grounds, too, a couple weeks ago. What was that like for you to have that opportunity to kind of go back home yourself?
I mean, it's great because, I mean, I spent 17 years at the same institution at Hofstra University. I lived on Long Island for 20 years. So the relationships that I've had with high school coaches and travel ball coaches and former players, I mean, they now are becoming Mizzou fans. And we have T-shirts that have been made that the area code 573 is now in 516, which is Nassau County area code. They follow our program because they have such ties to the relationships of the people that we have. So it was great that we were able to play in front of them. I'm extremely proud that Mizzou was able to play on Hofstra's field. When I was a coach at Hofstra, LSU came up and played us at Hofstra. And I just remember the impact that it had on that program to have an SEC school come on campus, because it wouldn't happen in any other sport. There isn't another sport on that campus that an SEC school would go and play. And to have the softball program at that level and the amount of respect that we have for each other, I mean, it's just going to continue to grow the sport, and that's our responsibility.
And it worked out about as well as it could have for you, I'm guessing, a very competitive game that you ultimately win. So
Too competitive.
Okay,
At
fair
one
enough.
point, I thought I was going to throw up. I actually went to Maddie during that game, and I was like, "Are we going to be okay?" And she's like, "Coach, we're fine. We got this." I'm like, "Okay, as long as you guys believe you got this." I did not want it to be that close, but it was emotional because I want to see Hofstra do well. Their head coach is a former player of mine and an alumni of Hofstra. But, of course, I want to win. I want to win more than anything. So when that game is as close, I was like, this isn't how it was supposed to turn out. But in the ultimate, it went into the win category.
Yep, so that was in late March. And then last week, mentioned the win against Drake. One more note from that. That was win number 200 in Larissa Anderson's time here at the University of Missouri. So congratulations on meeting that milestone here. It's hard for me to believe you've been here that long to where you could win 200 games already.
Is that a good thing or?
It is.
Yeah.
That means you're not.
Yeah.
You look so. You're so young. There's no way
thanks,
you could
thanks,
win
Brad.
200.
Thanks,
That's
thanks.
crazy. But
Thanks.
anyway, congratulations on that. Had the chance over the weekend, among several things that we'll touch on. But one of the things you got to do was recognize 70+ alums of Mizzou softball before the game on Saturday. What was the mix like? You've been here a few years now. How many of them were your former players? How many of them went back? We'll say a year or two before your time.
I mean, we had every decade covered.
Nice.
We had players from the 1975s, the first team that was here at Mizzou. We had the 80s, we had 90s, we had 2011, which is the last team that went to the College World Series, and we had recent in 2023 with our recent graduates. You know, when I took over the program here, one of the things I'm extremely passionate about is the alumni base. And having them realize and understand the value that they add to our program, because it's not our current team, it's not the 2024 team that built that stadium. It's not because of us, it's because of them. And when we appreciate and we recognize the foundation that they laid, now we're fighting for them. Every single game we go to play is to uphold their legacy that they built. And when we put the new home run padding on our fence and on our concourse, we have some beautiful banners that we have on display. They're to recognize the championship teams and they recognize the championship players, because those are the ones that really laid the foundation and left their mark.
So that was one thing that you could say it was bigger than just a softball game to have that kind of alumni recognition. Also Friday, as we touched on with Jenna, your team wore pink to raise awareness for the fight against breast cancer. You had some teal on the uniform Saturday for ovarian cancer awareness, recognition of former Mississippi State softball player Alex Wilcox, who died from the disease. Why is it important to work these themes into some of your home games?
Because it allows people to ask the question why. And on the Mizzou softball Facebook page, there was a woman who posted a comment, and she said, I brought my 3 daughters, aged 12, 10, and 9, to the game, and it gave me an opportunity to talk to them about ovarian cancer and what the signs and symptoms are. So if it saves one life, then it's completely worth it. And it's just to create that dialogue and that conversation to bring more awareness.
Love it. Good stuff. And go to the Mizzou softball Facebook page if you want more info on that. All right, let's look ahead. Massive opportunities for your team this week. SIU Edwardsville at home on Wednesday, then 3 against a Georgia team that's just ahead of you in the RPI as of this morning. Georgia's number 6, your team number 7. You may be on the, who knows what the committee's thinking, but you may be on the bubble, if you will, in terms of hosting a potential super regional in Columbia. Top 16 hosts a regional. Top 8 would host a super regional if you can make it out of that regional round. Do you talk about stuff like that with the players at all, or is it more just, tunnel focus on SIU Edwardsville here, and then you go from there?
We talk about it in the beginning. It's what do you want to accomplish this year? And it's we want to go to the College World Series. We want to host super regionals. We want to host regionals. How do you do it? So then it's kind of giving them an idea to understand what you have to do in order for that to be even a consideration. We're taking care of business. Like, we're doing everything possible. And in years past, we've been trying to scramble through the last month of our season to get ourselves that opportunity. We've been doing it from day one, which I think when Jenna was able to explain, like, when did you know that this team was special? It was before we even played our first game. And I would say it was probably the first meeting we had in August. I knew this team was special because you could just see it in their eyes that they wanted to make a difference and they wanted to be as successful as they possibly can be. And they're so selfless in doing that and carrying that out. So we know what Georgia is. We know what every opportunity that we have. We just have to focus on one game at a time because there really isn't one game that's any bigger than the other game we're going to play.
Just kind of broad strokes about Georgia? What should we know about the Bulldogs heading into that heavyweight college softball showdown coming up in Athens?
They are very, very well coached. They have all facets. They play unbelievable defense. They're very, very powerful offensively, and they have a real good dynamic pitching staff. So I mean, that's pretty much, I could say that every weekend, every SEC opponent is exactly the same and how strong they are. But I think what's really was to our advantage is the atmosphere we had this past weekend at home with the large crowd, because Georgia is a very intimidating venue. Their stadium is much more elevated, so it feels like the crowd's on top of you. So if you didn't experience something that we had at home, it would be kind of a little bit intimidating, but it's kind of like last weekend set us up to, it's just another game.
Who is going to be responsible for making sure the championship belt gets on the plane down to Athens?
Who's responsible for that?
Is that a freshman? That feels like a freshman kind of job.
Oh, but Maddie Gallagher, yeah, you were just pointed that you're responsible for the championship belt. Yes.
All right, Maddie Gallagher has been voluntold.
Abby just called you out.
All right, no pressure, no pressure there. So whoever brings the belt, make sure you're packing
Pack
it
in your carry-on
for the big matchup coming up this weekend. Best of luck in those games. Best of luck the rest of the regular season. We'll plan on having one more show after the SEC tournament. We'll recap the regular season and we'll look ahead to the NCAAs then. But for now, again, thanks for your time. Congrats on all the success you've had recently.
Thanks for having us here. We absolutely love doing it.
All right, that is Mizzou head softball coach Larissa Anderson. Our thanks to her. Our thanks to Jenna Laird and Maddie Gallagher for their time as well. Again, you can come out to Mizzou Softball Stadium on Wednesday at 5 for the matchup against SIU Edwardsville, and then the Tigers hit the road for games against Georgia coming up this weekend. Big thank you to Andrew Bristow for all his work behind the scenes. For him, I'm Brad Tronago. This has been a special edition of Tiger Talk from Bud's Classic Barbecue from Learfield. Have a great night.